I watched a 62-year-old man sit in my office last Tuesday and tell me with complete conviction that his life was essentially over. Not dying, just done. Finished. And when I asked him to describe his typical day, every single thing he listed was a silent surrender. He had no idea he was giving up. He thought he was just accepting reality. I'm Dr. Avery, and I've physically worked with hundreds of men over 60 across every major city in the U.S. And I need to tell you something that might sting. I can predict within 5 minutes of talking to a man whether he's still in the fight or whether he's already waved the white flag. Not based on his health, his money, or his circumstances. Based entirely on patterns he doesn't even recognize as surrender. And here's what frustrates me most. These men don't think they've given up. They think they're being realistic or practical or age-appropriate. But their bodies, their minds, and everyone around them can see exactly what's happening, and the consequences are brutal. Now, let me paint you a picture, and I want you to be brutally honest with yourself as I describe this. You used to have friends you'd see regularly. Golf buddies, work friends, guys from the neighborhood. But over the last few years, you've stopped returning calls, stopped showing up to gatherings. When someone invites you out, you find reasons to decline. You tell yourself you're just tired, or you don't feel like dealing with people, or they're boring anyway. But here's what the research actually shows. Social isolation in older men is one of the strongest predictors of early death, worse than obesity or smoking. When men withdraw socially, their cognitive function declines faster, their mental health deteriorates, and their mortality risk skyrockets. And here's the part that should terrify you. Men don't withdraw because they're tired. They withdraw because they've stopped believing they have anything valuable to offer. That's not acceptance. That's surrender. Thomas from Chicago sat exactly where you're sitting now and told me he hadn't seen his best friend in 8 months. They lived 4 miles apart. And that withdrawal, it bleeds into everything else. Because once you start pulling back from people, you start pulling back from the things that used to define you. What happened to your hobbies? The things you used to love doing. Woodworking, fishing, playing an instrument, working on cars, whatever it was. When's the last time you actually did those things? I'm not talking about thinking about doing them. I'm talking about actually making time, getting your hands dirty, engaging with something that used to bring you joy. This is called anhedonia, the loss of interest in previously enjoyed activities. And it's one of the clearest signs of depression in older adults. But most men don't recognize it as depression because they're not sitting around crying. They just feel flat, empty, like nothing's really worth the effort anymore. Richard from Dallas told me he had a fully equipped workshop in his garage that he hadn't entered in 2 years. 2 years. The tools were gathering dust while he sat inside watching TV shows he didn't even enjoy. Here's what happens when you stop engaging with activities that used to bring you purpose. Your brain literally starts to atrophy. You're not resting, you're deteriorating. And as your mind withdraws, your body follows right behind it. You're moving less, sitting more, taking the elevator instead of the stairs, parking as close as possible to every entrance. Maybe you've stopped exercising entirely, or you're doing the bare minimum just to say you did something. The research on this is devastating. Physically inactive older men who are socially isolated have dramatically worse health outcomes, not just in the obvious ways, but in every measurable category. Your diet gets worse because you stop caring what you eat. Your sleep deteriorates. Your pain increases because your body is literally rusting from disuse. And here's the brutal truth. This isn't happening because your body is old. This is happening because you've decided, consciously or unconsciously, that physical challenge isn't worth it anymore. You've surrendered to comfort. James from Phoenix used to run half marathons. When I met him at 63, he was winded walking to his mailbox. He told me his body had just given out. But when we dug deeper, he'd simply stopped trying 3 years earlier. His body hadn't failed him. He'd failed his body. Now, be honest with yourself right now. Which of these patterns are you recognizing in your own life? The social withdrawal, the lost hobbies, the physical decline? Drop a comment and tell me what's hitting home, because acknowledging the pattern is the first step to breaking it. Now, when your body starts breaking down from neglect, something else happens that most men don't connect. You start ignoring the warning signs. That pain in your knee you've been dealing with for months, you haven't seen anyone about it. Those vision changes, you keep putting off the eye exam, your teeth, your hearing, that weird digestive issue. You're just living with all of it. You know what's interesting? Research shows that older adults with depression don't usually present as sad. They present with physical complaints, aches, fatigue, digestive problems. But they don't recognize these as depression symptoms because there's no crying or obvious emotional distress. Men especially express depression through their bodies rather than their emotions. You're not feeling sad. You're feeling tired, achy, worn down. And instead of addressing it, you're ignoring it, thinking it's just part of aging. Marcus from Seattle had untreated hearing loss for 5 years. 5 years of straining to understand conversations, pretending he heard things he didn't, gradually withdrawing from social situations because they were too exhausting. When he finally got hearing aids, he broke down in my office because he realized how much life he'd been missing. Neglecting your health isn't acceptance of aging, it's acceptance of decline. And those are two completely different things. And when you combine social withdrawal, lost interests, physical decline, and neglected health, you end up in a place that's incredibly dark. You stop believing you have anything left to contribute. Projects you used to tackle, forgotten. Ways you used to help others, abandoned. That sense of contribution and productivity that used to drive you, gone. Research on depressed older men shows this is central to their experience. They feel useless, worthless, like they have nothing left to contribute. And because society often reinforces this message, they accept it as truth. But here's what's actually happening. Your brain is interpreting your withdrawal from purpose as confirmation that you have no purpose. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You stop doing things, which makes you feel useless, which makes you stop doing more things, which makes you feel more useless. Robert from Miami was a successful contractor his entire life. At 61, he stopped taking new projects. By 64, he wasn't even helping friends with small repairs. He told me he didn't want to get in the way or slow anyone down. The truth is, he was terrified of not being as sharp, as fast, as capable as he used to be. So instead of adapting, he quit. I remember when I talked about this pattern in an edition of the Senior Men Club weekly newsletter, or many subscribers, men like you who have decided not to accept decline, emailed back saying they finally understood why they'd been feeling so empty. They thought losing purpose was inevitable at their age. It's not. If you're not part of that community yet, you need to join. It's free, and the link will be in the comment section and the description area. Moving on, let's look at where it gets really dark, and I need you to stay with me here. Because when all of these patterns converge, the isolation, the lost joy, the physical decline, the ignored health, the absent purpose, you end up doing something that feels like relief but is actually poison. You start escaping. Maybe it's alcohol, a few drinks every night that turned into more than a few. Maybe it's screen time, hours of television or internet that you don't even remember afterwards. Maybe it's gambling, gaming, or burying yourself in work to avoid facing what's really going on inside. Men are far more likely than women to self-medicate with alcohol or drugs rather than admit they're struggling. You're not sitting there thinking, I'm depressed and I need help. You're thinking, I need a drink, or I need to zone out, or I need something to make this emptiness stop. The research is clear. This escapism isn't helping you cope. It's accelerating your decline. It's another form of surrender disguised as stress relief. David from Boston was drinking 8 to 10 beers every single night. He wasn't an alcoholic in his mind. He was just relaxing after a long day. Except he'd been retired for 3 years. What was he relaxing from? He was medicating the crushing awareness that he'd stopped mattering. Okay, I know this is hard to hear, but I need you to answer honestly. Have you recognized yourself in any of these patterns? And more importantly, are you ready to do something about it? Let me know in the comments where you are right now, because what comes next is your way out. Now, here's what I need you to understand, and this is why I'm being this direct with you. None of this means you're finished. None of this means it's too late. Every single man I just described, they turned it around. Not all of them, but the ones who recognized these patterns and decided to fight back. They're living proof that 60 isn't the end of anything. Thomas reconnected with his best friend, and they started a weekly breakfast tradition. Richard went back into his workshop and is now teaching woodworking to teenagers in his community. James ran a 5K 6 months after our conversation. Marcus not only got hearing aids, he joined a men's discussion group and became one of the most active members. The difference between men who surrender and men who thrive past 60 isn't health, money, or circumstances. It's the decision to keep fighting. Here's your action plan, and I want you to start today, not tomorrow, not next week. Today. First, reach out to one person you've been avoiding. One friend, one family member, one human connection you've let slip. Make the call. Second, do one thing, just one, that you used to love. Doesn't matter how rusty you are. Pick up the guitar, open the toolbox, go to the fishing spot, prove to yourself that you're still capable of joy. Third, schedule one medical appointment you've been putting off. 1. Your body deserves maintenance, not neglect. Fourth, move your body in a way that challenges you. Walk farther, lift something heavy, take the stairs, show yourself you're not done yet. Now, if you're man enough to face these patterns head on and commit to staying in the fight, hit that subscribe button and notification bell right now, because I'm going to keep delivering the hard truths and practical strategies that separate men who thrive from men who fade. And very importantly, if you're recognizing signs of depression, especially if you're having thoughts of self-harm or suicide, please reach out to a mental health professional immediately. This isn't weakness. This is intelligence. The strongest men I know are the ones who asked for help when they need it. And just before you go, drop a comment below telling me which pattern you're committing to breaking first. Not thinking about breaking, committing to breaking. This community needs to see men taking action, and your decision might inspire another man to do the same. You haven't lost anything yet, but you will if you keep surrendering. The battle isn't over until you decide it is, and today's the day you decide to keep fighting. I'm Dr. Avery, and I'll see you on the next one.